Hello everybody, it's me, back at it again, recording another video. Unfortunately, the Storm Prediction Center has updated their uh, risk outlook, their outlooks for severe weather, and it's definitely not pretty. Today, Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026. Currently, right now, I'm recording this at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Mountain, 1 p.m. Pacific. We have a marginal risk for today. We have a slight risk for tomorrow, Thursday, April 23rd. We have a slight risk for Friday, April 24th. We have a 30% enhanced risk equivalent for Saturday, April 25th. We have the same thing, a 30% slight risk equivalent for Sunday, April 26th, and a 15% slight risk equivalent for Monday, April 27th, the 15-year commemoration ceremony of April 27th, 2011. It's not going to be bad. Or it is going to be bad. It's not going to be good. That's what I meant to say, but my tongue didn't want to say it. So we have a marginal risk today that stems from the Canadian border all the way down through Montana into the Dakotas, into Nebraska, northeast Colorado, Kansas, the Oklahoma and Texas panhandles, and stopping at West Texas. We also have another marginal risk from southern Michigan to northeast Indiana to central and northwest Ohio. Just a severe thunderstorm complex. You could see those pixels mean that severe thunderstorms are showing up on radar, so that's always nice. We're actually going to skip uh, today's severe weather day because of the extremely important things that we have to deal with from tomorrow all the way through Monday and potentially beyond Monday as well. We really don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, April 28th or April 29th. We really do not know what's going to occur. We really don't. I mean, who knows? Severe weather may die down, severe weather may ramp up. Who really knows? But probably it will die. Hopefully, probably. Because this is going to be a major severe weather outbreak that will afflict many people. Many. And it's going to be a very unfortunate thing to deal with. You're going to be hearing about major tornadoes potentially, very large hail and damaging winds. It's not going to be pretty whatsoever. Anyway, I will stop with my logorrheic discussion. Let's get into it. So, like I said, I'm going to be skipping today's Storm Prediction Center outlook because not only have severe thunderstorms fired, but it's also basically irrelevant because it's not a slight risk. And yeah, there's no tornado threat. I just double check. There's no tornado threat. There's a slight wind threat and a slight hail threat. And by slight, I mean 5%, not the slight risk. Uh, Just another vocabulary word just to say tiny, small, slight, not the 2 out of 5 risk, but just using vocabulary to my advantage, not correlating or in tandem with the storm prediction center. Uh, so this is tomorrow's outlook. Tomorrow we have a slight risk that extends from eastern and southeastern Kansas all the way through northern and western Missouri and southeast Nebraska and almost the whole state of Iowa, besides the extreme northeast or northwest and eastern fringes of Iowa. I believe Dubuque is maybe near or in the risk. That's Dubuque, Iowa. And then that extends also into southern and southeastern Minnesota and the extreme western fringe of Wisconsin. There's also a marginal risk extending from north central Texas through central Oklahoma into the southern plains, into the plains, into the Great Lakes region, and finally terminating at the Canadian border. We have a 5% risk of tornadoes that extends from southeast Kansas and east Kansas through southeast Nebraska, southwest Iowa, and northwest Missouri. There's also a 2% risk extending from the, uh, near the Great Lakes region, like near this Great Lake. To be honest, I genuinely don't know the name. I know the names of the Great Lakes, I just can't identify them by heart. Uh, this lake above the UP of Michigan, keyword is above, it's near there. Uh, and the 2% tornado risk runs from southeast Minnesota and central and eastern and southern Minnesota all the way to western Wisconsin into almost all of Iowa besides the southwest fringe, into central Missouri, into eastern Nebraska, into eastern and central Kansas and central Oklahoma, and a very small, slim portion of north central Texas, northwest Arkansas, and a very, very tiny portion of extreme western Illinois. Also, southeast South Dakota is in the risk for 2% as well. There's a hatched risk as well, extending from western Iowa, west central Iowa, all the way down into southeast Nebraska, northwest Missouri, eastern Kansas, and central Oklahoma. So, Oklahoma City, you are under the 2% hatched risk, stippled single hatched risk of tornadoes. Wow. Kansas City is also, I believe, yes, Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas are under the 5% hatched risk of tornadoes. Uh, Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Omaha, Tulsa, and Wichita, you are under the hatched risk for tornadoes, meaning that there is a potential for EF2 plus tornadoes, and the potential it is a 5%. So it's not too bad. It's not that unfavorable for tornadoes. Also, wind risk. This wind risk is what's perpetuating the whole structure of the the risk outlook. You see, this is the categorical outlook, then this is the wind outlook. Notice how, yes, they're different colors, but notice how they're basically like the same. Yes, albeit there are some minor tweaks to the slight risk and marginal risk in Kansas and Oklahoma, but it's like perpetuating the whole structure of the risk outlook. So again, we have a wind risk, 15%, that extends from southeast Minnesota to extreme western Wisconsin to extreme western Illinois to almost all of Iowa to southeastern Nebraska to eastern and northeastern and potentially a little bit of southeastern Kansas into central and northern and western Missouri. And then a marginal risk again extending from the Canadian border to north central Texas. There's a 15% wind risk and a 5% wind risk. And then we have the hail threat. Now, the hail threat is a little bit more concerning because there's a stippled region. There's a stippled region that goes from the Omaha metro area, somewhere near there, all the way down uh, into eastern Kansas, a little bit of northwest Missouri, into Oklahoma, and into north central Texas. 5% near that Great Lake above the UP of Michigan, all the way from basically touching the Great Lakes, all the way down into north central Texas. And there's a small 15% corridor extending from southern Minnesota to the extreme portion of west central Wisconsin to central and western Iowa to southeast Nebraska to northwest Missouri and into eastern and east central Kansas. So, the hail threat is concerning because there could be isolated instances of large hail tomorrow. Uh, Also, an isolated instance, well, not really isolated, but there are going to be instances of potentially is the key word here, potentially EF2 plus tornadoes. There also will be a risk of wind, albeit it won't be very severe, as with what's delineated and everything so far. So, there's a slight risk of severe thunderstorms from southern Kansas into southern Minnesota. Summary. Oh boy. Severe thunderstorms will be possible from southern Kansas into southern Minnesota on Thursday. Large to very large hail, damaging winds, and a few tornadoes are possible. Synopsis. A shortwave trough initially over the northern high plains Thursday morning is forecast to shift east across the northern plains into the upper Mississippi Valley in tandem with a belt of 50 to 60 knot south-southwesterly winds in the mid-levels. A secondary lower latitude disturbance will advance into western Kansas and the Oklahoma-Texas panhandles late Thursday afternoon into evening, along with a more zonal mid to upper level jet streak. At the surface, the primary cyclone attendant to the northern plains system is expected to undergo a occlusion over southern into central Manitoba, while a trailing cold front progresses east through the northern plains into the upper Mississippi Valley. A prefrontal trough or pseudo-dry line will precede the cold front, extending from western Minnesota through western Iowa and eastern Nebraska into central Kansas by early to mid-afternoon. A secondary surface low is forecast to deepen across portions of southwest Kansas or northwest Oklahoma Thursday afternoon in response to the approach of the lower latitude disturbance mentioned above. A more classic dry line will extend south from that low through western Oklahoma into western North Texas during the peak of the diurnal heating cycle. Upper Mississippi Valley and upper Midwest through the mid to lower Missouri Valley into central and eastern Kansas. A broad nocturnal low-level wind maximum will develop across the Great Plains tonight, Wednesday night, enhancing the poleward flux of an increasingly moist boundary layer beneath a residual elevated mixed layer plume residing across the same region. The moisture increase beneath a capping inversion at the base of the elevated mixed layer may result in considerable cloud cover Thursday afternoon across portions of the warm sector air mass. Where cloud breaks occur, model soundings indicate the potential for mixed layer convective available potential energy to approach 10 to 1500 joules per kilogram across portions of southern Minnesota to as high as 2 to 3000 joules per kilogram in central and eastern Kansas. By early to mid-afternoon, convergence along the prefrontal trough and dryline coupled with increasing height falls and forcing for ascent are expected to support widely scattered thunderstorms from portions of central and southern Minnesota through eastern Nebraska and western Iowa into at least northeast Kansas. While the strongest mid to upper level wind fields are expected to remain to the immediate west of the initiating boundary, a corridor of 40 to 45 knots of effective bulk shear A corridor of 40 to 45 knots of effective bulk shear will overlie the western fringe of the warm sector, supporting organized multicells and supercells as the initial storm mode with an attendant threat for large to very large hail and a few tornadoes. Subsequent upscale growth into a broken band of storms is expected Thursday evening into Thursday night across portions of eastern Minnesota into western Wisconsin, western and central Iowa, southeast Nebraska, northeast Kansas, and northwest Missouri. The damaging wind potential will increase with that mode change, with a continuing risk for a few tornadoes. The most favorable overlap of moderate to strong instability and vertical wind shear is expected to develop across central into eastern Kansas Thursday afternoon into the evening. Here, a few intense supercells capable of all severe weather hazards appear possible, and a categorical upgrade to a level 3 enhanced risk may be required in subsequent day 1 outlooks. That is not a good signal because strong, severe thunderstorms capable of producing major hazards of all types, that's very concerning. So if there is an enhanced risk upgrade, be aware and be prepared. Alrighty. Last two paragraphs. Oklahoma into North Texas. Moderate to strong instability, i.e. ML Cape of 2500 to 3500 joules per kilogram, is expected to develop east of the dry line by late afternoon into early evening on Thursday. However, strong capping at the base of the elevated mixed layer casts considerable uncertainty on whether thunderstorms can develop. While yes, the strongest forcing for ascent associated with the secondary shortwave trough is expected to remain across Kansas, subtle mid-level height falls are forecast across northern Oklahoma. Otherwise, strong heating to the west of the dryline and resulting deepening circulations along it will be the primary mechanism responsible for any storm development. On the condition that isolated thunderstorms do develop and become sustained, the kinematic environment will support supercells capable of very large hail and tornadoes. This is especially the case during the evening hours as low-level shear strengthens in response to the amplification of the low-level jet. Alrighty, so to recap, basically, tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds, potentially damaging, are expected tomorrow, most concentrated in and or near the yellow region. That is where tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds can occur and will wreak havoc potentially on certain communities. So please, if you or any one of your family members live in that yellow risk, please be prepared for tomorrow and do not wait. Be prepared now. Be right back. I have to blow my nose. I am back. Apologies that my the quality of my videos has a little bit of a detriment to it. It's because I have sinusitis and non-allergic rhinitis. So usually my sinuses hate me, which is wonderful. Just so glamorous. I hate it. But, no time for discussing about my body. It's time to just continuously discuss about the weather. So please, again, be prepared for tomorrow. However, you gotta be even prepared for Wednesday. If you live in Southeast Texas, or sorry, Southeast Oklahoma, my apologies, Northeast Texas, Northern Louisiana, Northwestern Mississippi, the Memphis metro area, Southern Missouri, and the whole entire state of Arkansas is under this slight risk of severe weather. There's also a marginal risk extending from the Midwest all the way down through the Tennessee Valley into the Mississippi Valley, into Louisiana and the Gulf Coast states, into Texas and Oklahoma and southeast Kansas, and central Missouri. So, uh, wonderful. Now, if you look at the probabilistic outlook, there is no hatching, which means that the severe weather is expected to not be as well, I shouldn't say expected to, but the severe weather is prognosticated to not be as intense as some other days, like tomorrow. Now, maybe that's because of uncertainty, and when I mean maybe, I mean definitely. But it's a good sign to not see a stippled region over a day 3 slight risk. It's always very good to see. Just again, another reminder before I read the description, the whole state of Arkansas. That includes every single county, every single city will be under a severe weather risk tomorrow, and severe thunderstorms will plague Arkansas, the whole state. So please be prepared. Be prepared for some potential tornado warnings and definitely severe thunderstorm warnings. So please be prepared. Some cities included in the slight risk include Dallas, Memphis, Arlington, Plano, Garland, Texas, Shreveport, Shreveport, Louisiana, I think is in the slight risk. Little Rock, I know, is definitely in the slight risk. Memphis is in the slight risk. Some other places are in the slight risk, like I believe Caruthersville is maybe in the slight risk. Tulsa is very close to being in the slight risk, but it's not in the slight risk. Some places in the marginal risk include Fort Worth, Oklahoma City, Nashville, Tulsa, and St. Louis, Missouri. Now let's read the description. We're going to start from the top of the screen. Summary. A few severe thunderstorms will be possible across portions of the southern plains into the lower Mississippi Valley on Friday. Large hail and damaging wind gusts should be the primary threats. Southern plains into the lower Mississippi Valley. Thunderstorms may be ongoing at the start of the period Friday morning from parts of Oklahoma into Arkansas and Missouri, and possibly into the lower Ohio Valley. While a general weakening trend is expected during the morning, the strongest early day storms could pose a threat of isolated hail and localized strong to damaging wind gusts. The primary severe threat is expected to develop from the afternoon into the evening along the primary outflow boundary/cold front, and any other residual boundaries left over from the morning convection. The strongest heating and destabilization is expected from parts of Texas into southeast Oklahoma, where a mixed layer cape of 2 to 3,000 joules per kilogram may develop, with moderate instability expected as far east as the lower Mississippi and Ohio valleys. At this time, the greatest diurnal storm coverage is expected from eastern Oklahoma to northeast Texas into Arkansas, where a weak mid-level shortwave trough and potential mesoscale convective vortice may overlap moderate to strong buoyancy. Effective shear will be relatively modest, generally 30 to 35 knots, but sufficient to support some storm organization. Initial diurnal development in this region could pose a threat for hail and locally damaging winds. Low-level flow and shear will generally remain weak, but storm and boundary interactions could also support a low tornado threat, keyword being low. With time, consolidating outflows could support modest upscale growth and a potential increase in the damaging wind potential into the early evening as thunderstorms spread east-southeastward. Storm coverage may remain quite isolated across western portions of the level 2 out of 5 slight risk area due to weak large-scale ascent, but isolated development will be possible as convective inhibition weakens. The strongly unstable and sufficiently sheared environment will conditionally favor a severe thunderstorm threat across parts of southern Oklahoma and North Texas if thunderstorms can be sustained. So, Friday's severe weather risk? Not so bad, not so severe, like we've been seeing for the past weeks, where severe weather is just going and going and going. Friday will not be like tomorrow. Friday will not be like Thursday, thankfully. Uh, Super glad that there is a very low tornado threat. Um, so, I mean, yes, there will be tornadoes. There will be a couple of tornado warnings interspersed and intermingled with all of the messy conglomerated convection and severe thunderstorm warnings. So there isn't too much to worry about on Friday, other than the fact that vigorous thunderstorms could potentially develop. That 2 to 3,000 joules per kilogram of mixed layer cape uh, will be enough to foster growth of thunderstorms, and these thunderstorms will definitely have a boosted, lengthened longevity. So just keep that in mind. Now, this is where it gets concerning. Day 4, Saturday. Look at this. There's a 30% enhanced risk equivalent of severe weather extending from south-central Kansas into central and northeast Oklahoma and the extreme western fringe of Arkansas, and there will be a 15% slight risk equivalent extending from northeast Texas into the Oklahoma region, into western Arkansas, into southwest Missouri, and central, southern, and eastern Kansas. That is not great. However, what's worse is this. Sunday's risk. Sunday's risk has a 30%, again, enhanced risk equivalent from east, central, and southeast Oklahoma, excluding the Texarkana region, Texarkana metro, central and eastern Oklahoma, into southeast Kansas, and the extreme southwestern fringe of Missouri and the northwestern fringe of Arkansas. And and we have a 15% slight risk equivalent extending from extreme southeastern Nebraska into western Missouri and southwest Missouri into east central Kansas, into central and kind of western Oklahoma, into extreme northeast Texas, into uh, northwestern, western, southwestern, and west central Arkansas, and I've said all the states. That is concerning. Now, I've seen people compare, like, well, I haven't seen comparisons yet. I don't know why I said compare. I'm talking about the day 6 outlook uh, for Monday, April 27th. They're comparing this April 27th to the OG April 27th, just because of the location. Now, do I think that April 27th, 2011 will spark again? No. There's way too much uncertainty to tell. Plus, the models are definitely showing a lesser signal of severe weather than what the models said on April 27th. The models are not showing this huge drop, which is good, which is good, but still severe weather regardless is not great. Day 6. Boom. Look at that. I don't know why they're comparing this April 27th, 2026 to April 27th, 2011, but Monday, April 27th, day 6, this is the risk. Here it is. Extending from the Evansville metro all the way to southern Illinois, into southeast Missouri, into almost the whole state of Arkansas besides the western portion, uh, into a very small sliver of northeast Kansas, into northern Louisiana, into central and northern Mississippi, into the northwestern flank of Alabama, into central and western Tennessee, and into western Kentucky. Birmingham is no longer under the enhanced risk, or sorry. Birmingham is no longer under the 15% slight risk equivalent for April 27th, 2026. Hopefully they don't have to relive another April 27th, because if you really know what happened that day, I don't have to tell you. You'll know why. So anyway, this is for Saturday's severe risk. This is Sundays. This is Mondays. Day 4, day 5, day 6. It can't get much more concerning than this. Well, I lied. It definitely can't. However, let's read the description. Discussion. An active severe weather pattern will continue through early next week. Keyword is will. On Saturday, day 4, model guidance continues to show thunderstorms developing during the late afternoon and early evening hours along a lifting warm front across the southern plains. Along and south of this boundary, the environment will be strongly unstable, with MU Cape, or most unstable Cape, between 2 and 3,000 joules per kilogram as a low-level jet continually advects mid-60s dew points north across the boundary. Effective layer shear around 40 knots would support an initial supercell threat that should grow upscale into Boeing segments overnight. A 30% area is introduced across southwest Kansas into east central Oklahoma, for the expectation being strong Boeing segments to move east-southeast overnight into a strong low-level jet. The storms will be capable of producing strong winds, large hail, and QLCS, quasi-linear convective system, tornadoes. Some concerning things with this first paragraph. Strongly unstable. You never want to see that, really. You never want to see that, because that means that the environment now has a lot of lift and a lot of energy. The higher the CAPE values are, the more a parcel can forcefully eject and rise. 2 to 3,000 joules per kilogram can easily sustain thunderstorms for long periods of time, hours, potentially even into the next day. Not good. Not good. Mid 60s dew points. Mid 60s. Mid 60s. Uh, Mid 60s. Mid 60s. And then as a low level jet continually advex mid 60s dew points. That is never good, because now that means that there's moisture. Moisture combined with instability creates lift. You just need shear. And that's what's mentioned because effective layer shear around 40 knots would support an initial supercell threat that should grow upscale into Boeing segments overnight. Initially, there's going to be a supercell threat, which basically means that initially all hazards will be discretely possible. Discretely because supercells will be discrete. However, very likely, these thunderstorms will do something called growing upscale, meaning they kind of just conglomerate and congeal into one long line. Growing upscale basically means that instead of there just being dots of supercells on the radar, they grow and merge with each other into just one big mesoscale convective complex and become some sort of a line, a mesoscale convective system or a quasi-linear convective system. I'm gonna need another tissue, I apologize. Io por aquí. No sé ni qué te pediste, ni acá. Dude. I am back, everybody, for the second time. Um, strong winds. Let's get back into it. Strong winds, large hail, and QLCS tornadoes. Not good. QLCS tornadoes are more, I believe, in my opinion, potentially backed up by evidence as well. QLCS tornadoes are deadlier than regular tornadoes because the supercells embedded within a line, they're in a line. And it's literally just a ton of thunderstorms together competing for the same limited resources. And so the individual thunderstorms that are congealed in the line, yes, you can look on velocity and you can see, yes, there could be a potential quasi-linear convective system tornado. However, you can't really tell sometimes if it's side-lobing or it's actual rotation. And sometimes you can't tell when a tornado is on the ground or not, because tornadoes can spin up. There is something called spin-up tornadoes where they randomly just spin up, touch to the ground, destroy things, then lift a couple of minutes later, and sometimes they're not caught on radar because either the radar is delayed or the spin up tornado was just that quick. Just spun up and then boom, it's gone. Sometimes, however, it is caught on radar, but then it usually dissipates just a couple of minutes after the first scan that initially detects a tornado. So, wonderful. In a sarcastic way, of course. Let's read this next beefy paragraph. And this is where everything gets more concerning. On Sunday, day 5, ongoing convection across southeast Kansas and western Missouri at the start of the period may pose a continued risk of hail and damaging winds, and this convection may persist into the mid-morning. To the west, continued moist low-level advection will allow for surface dew points to rise into the upper 60s to low 70s across central Oklahoma to the east of a sharp dry line. At the same time, a low-amplitude shortwave should approach the southern plains during the late afternoon and evening, with a mid-990 millibar surface low developing across northwest Oklahoma along the dry line. The result of this setup will be a, quote, volatile atmosphere, end quote, where mixed layer CAPE values around 4,000 joules per kilogram shall exist within a strongly sheared environment, vertical shear nearly 50 knots. Should thunderstorms initiate, keyword is should thunderstorms initiate, a high-end severe weather threat could materialize during the late afternoon and evening across central and eastern Oklahoma and southern Kansas. However, global models continue to struggle to develop convection within this environment despite model guidance having modest upward vertical velocities overspreading the dry line. Pattern recognition suggests the need for a 30% severe area for this potential, despite the lack of a quantitative precipitation forecast signal in the global models, and have opted to add one with this forecast. The location of this 30% risk will likely need to be refined in subsequent outlooks. Let's go over this paragraph. We still have two more paragraphs to go, but we're going to go over this one. So where do I start? Here, continued moist low-level advection will allow for surface dew points to rise to the upper 60s to low 70s across central Oklahoma to the east of a sharp dry line. Continued low-level advection means that moisture at the low levels is continuously moving north. It's moving from the Gulf up north into the Gulf Coast states, into the southern plains, and it's advecting, meaning moving north, dew points of the upper 60s to low 70s, which creates a vast amount of potency in the atmosphere. It says at the same time here at the same time a low amp shortwave should approach the southern plains during the late afternoon and evening hours with a mid 990 millibar surface low developing across northwest Oklahoma along the dry line. Mid 990 millibar cyclone is strong. It's not too strong, but it's definitely strong and can definitely warrant severe weather. The shortwave will just be the initiator of severe weather along with the dry line. The result of this setup will be a volatile environment, atmosphere where ML Cape, around 4,000 joules per kilogram, exists within a strongly sheared environment. Vertical shear nearly 50 knots. 4,000 joules per kilogram. 4,000 is a lot. 4,000 joules per kilogram of any kind of cape will sustain thunderstorms for very long periods of time. Very long periods. And the longevity of these storms will be significant. The intensity of these storms will also be significant. With thunderstorms completely punching through the capping inversion that's located above the surface that disallows thunderstorm development. When that cap breaks, boom. One thunderstorm explodes within like 10 minutes. That is not good. Never. That is never, ever good to see this. And what's worse is it's 4,000 joules per kilogram of the ML Cape within a strongly sheared environment. Around 50 knots of shear. That is not good. Because not only does that mean that thunderstorms can, boom, break through the cap pretty easily and explode, tornadoes, especially EF3 to EF4 plus tornadoes, will likely occur from these supercells if they do spawn. Now, like was said earlier, convection is not necessarily insinuated on the models. I actually looked. The models show literally no convection. None. None from the afternoon until the evening into the night there's none. There's literally nothing for Sunday. I don't know why people are hyping this up Sunday, but we may have a severe weather outbreak in the cards. Potentially even a major tornado outbreak. I hope not, but I really wouldn't be surprised, as this is peak tornado season, everybody. At least we're getting closer and closer to May. May 1st is peak tornado season. June 30th is really the end of tornado season. Alrighty. And then again, should thunderstorms initiate, a high and severe weather threat can materialize. However, global convection continues to struggle developing convection within this environment. Having a 30% without convection or with a lackluster convective mode means that this environment is about to blow. It's going to do the most crazy crap you can ever see. And if convective uncertainties can be ruled out. I'm not trying to clickbait here. However, if things continue to worsen, the Cape gets worse and the shear gets stronger, we may have our first high risk of 2026. Again, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm not trying to bait anybody into, believing that, oh, there's going to be a high risk of severe weather in Oklahoma. Da, 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 da. No, there's not going to be a high risk. There's not a 100% certainty that there is going to be a high risk. I'm just saying that if trends get worse, if the convection actually starts to be shown, if the Cape values increase to, let's say, 4,500 or 5,000 joules per kilogram, and the shear increases to, let's say, 55 or 60 or 65 knots, hypothetically speaking, we could see our first high risk of 2026 with a 30% hatched, double hatched, triple hatched risk of tornadoes. Maybe. And I really hope not. But you definitely cannot rule that out. All we have to do is just wait. Alright, so the last two paragraphs. The severe threat should continue until Monday, day 6, across portions of the lower Mississippi Valley. Strong thunderstorms should develop along and ahead of an eastward moving cold front. Most unstable Cape of 2 to 3,000 joules per kilogram and 40 knots of deep layer shear will support supercell thunderstorms capable of all severe hazards. Wonderful. Once again, the location, number, and intensity of these supercells hiccuped, will likely be modulated by the events on Sunday. Specifically, if widespread convection does not occur Sunday across the southern plains, a more robust reservoir of Cape/lapse rates will be available to thunderstorms across the lower Mississippi Valley on Monday, and a higher-end severe potential may develop. This will be monitored in subsequent forecasts. So I'm not really going to highlight anything, but just to summarize, Monday will definitely have a severe weather threat capable of all hazards. However, we don't really know the extent of the severe weather because we still need to see what will happen on Sunday. We don't know what's going to happen on Sunday. Currently, the models are saying that there will literally be no convection. Literally none. Last I checked, GFS, ECMWF, they basically showed like nothing. Just a spurt of convection. That's not great. It's not a great signal, which could mean it actually is great. Not great for the environment because then there's just a building and building and building and building and building and building of instability. And then boom, it's got to bust somehow. And by bust, I don't mean like bust as in the cap has got to be unleashed, uncorked, things have got to explode. So again, Monday and everything has to do with what happens on Sunday. So we have to watch Sunday closely in order to watch Monday. And then by Tuesday, day 7 into Wednesday, day 8, uncertainty in the severe potential across the southeast increases too much to have confidence in identifying specific locations. Although, as the mesoscale details become cleared in the preceding days, areas may need to be added in subsequent forecasts. So, in summary of that tiny little paragraph, potentially, areas of 15% slight risk equivalence may be necessitated in future forecasts. Wonderful. So, I'm not saying we're going to have severe weather after Monday, April 27th. However, there is a possibility, somehow, somewhere, that severe weather will occur somewhere in the southeast at some extent. But we really don't know due to the amount of vast uncertainty. So, to recap, tomorrow, there's a risk of severe weather. There will be a risk for strong tornadoes, large to very large hail, and potential wind damage. Friday, the severe weather risk is limited due to unfavorable environments. I shouldn't say unfavorable, but compared to tomorrow, the environment will be meh, and thunderstorms will not necessarily be as severe. The risk of tornadoes is low, and the primary risk of severe weather is just for winds and hail. And then, this is Saturday severe weather risk, this is Sunday severe weather risk, and this is Monday severe weather risk. You need to watch closely what will happen and when and where, because this will be a multi-day potential tornado outbreak that will occur. Multiple days of severe weather are going to occur, are going to happen. This is not a, oh, it may happen, oh, this will happen. W-I-L-L. This will happen. No ifs, ands, or buts. This is going to occur, and it's probably going to be very, very uh, traumatizing. I don't know where I was going with that. This will probably be a very traumatizing event for some people. It's very unfortunate that I do have to say that, but you can't rule out the negatives as much as you rule out the positives. You all need to please look out for severe weather, especially on Saturday and Sunday. More specifically, Sunday and Saturday, but Sunday is uptrending a little bit more. So please be prepared, especially for tomorrow. Severe weather kicks off tomorrow and doesn't ever stop until like Monday. In beyond Monday, severe weather is potentially going to occur. So that really is it. Make sure you know what to do when a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning comes through. Move to your basement or an interior room on the lowest floor of a sturdy building. Avoid windows. If you're outdoors in a mobile home or in a vehicle, move to the closest substantial shelter and protect yourself from flying debris immediately. Tornadoes are extremely difficult to see and confirm at night, so do not wait to see or hear a tornado and take cover. Please have multiple ways to access the National Weather Service's weather radios and weather warnings, I should say, watches, warnings, and advisories, like having radios, weather radios, scanners, the television, social media, following the National Weather Service, all things like that you should have implemented. You should be prepared for this. You should be not afraid of this, and you should unwaver in the face of danger. So yeah, hopefully that brings some confidence to you, and hopefully you can do what's best for, everybody. So that really is it. I have nothing else to say. Have an amazing day, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.